Welcome to our Grants Pass District 7 School Board meeting this evening. We're going to call our meeting to order, and we'll begin by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So for all of those who wish to join me, I'd ask you to stand and we'll recite the pledge. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tanya, can we have the agenda put up? Great, thanks. So we'd like to remind everybody who's joining us tonight, since this is just a Zoom meeting, if you'd like to speak to one of our agenda items, we'd ask you to put that in the chat, and I'll ask Dr. Bloomquist to monitor that for us and let me know when we have, if we have a comment at the appropriate time. Superintendent Kolb, are there any written communications?
There are no written communications at this time.
Okay. Our first item on our agenda tonight is 2.3, recognition of District 7 Good Samaritan. And so we'll turn the time over to whoever has been invited to present that.
I will introduce Battalion Chief Lloyd Lawless to briefly give a presentation recognizing some Good Samaritans who are part of our school district. So Chief, it's yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Once again, my name is Lloyd Lawless, and I'm the Operations Chief for Grants Pass Fire Rescue. And we're here tonight to honor two of the district's employees that were inspirational in the outcome at a recent structure fire here in Grants Pass. We first want to thank the Grants Pass District 7 Board for allowing us the time up front to honor these two gentlemen. We would also like to say thank you to all the teachers and administrators for their steadfast work as we maneuver through this pandemic. So tonight, it is our privilege. We want to honor both Kevin Bishop and Brian Hegman. And I would like to go ahead and read off something that was written here. It kind of tells the story that we received of this day. On January 12, 2022, at approximately 12:30, there was a structure fire at 1439 Washington Boulevard. Grants Pass Fire Rescue was dispatched and told that the home was on fire and that there were still people inside. Updated information was given that the occupants were now out of the house. 7307, the engine from the Hillcrest Fire Station, was the first engine to arrive on scene with a two-story residential structure fire. Flames coming out the front door and windows on the first floor, with heavy black smoke showing on the second floor. The fire crews knocked the fire down and moved inside and conducted a primary search and continued to overhaul the fire. It was determined that two employees from the Grants Pass School District were passing by the location and noticed smoke coming from a second-story window. They quickly parked their truck and went to the front door and discovered heavy black smoke on the first floor of the structure. The two employees then went to the side of the house where they found a mother with her 3-year-old daughter trying to exit from the second-story window. The child was dropped to the two men, and then the mother jumped down to them as well. If not for the quick action of these two gentlemen, the volume of fire and heated gases on the first floor that quickly advanced to the second floor could have consumed both mother and child. On behalf of Grants Pass Fire Rescue, we would like to honor and say thank you for your life-saving measures. Your selfless act potentially saved the lives of two people. Let me add that heavy fire involvement on the first floor with a single stairwell to the second floor, no exits to the outside except windows. When a door is opened, it allows air to travel in. And if a window is open upstairs, it allows an absolute flow path of air to advance any heated gases to that second floor. The signs outside of this home did not indicate that there was anybody home. However, the mother and child were upstairs taking a nap. The only way out was actually the second floor window. The interesting part is these two gentlemen were doing their daily work and they noticed something that wasn't right. And it doesn't take special training to do what's right. And so when we hear this and when we see this, and the interesting part is both these gentlemen were not there when I arrived on scene. They had left to continue their duties. The fire department was there taking care of the rest of the fire. It was upon their return from their duties coming back, they decided they'd swing by where I ran out in the road and said, hey, I need you to pull over. Were you guys the folks that were here? Just to get their names. So this is a true testament of the employees, the type of employees that you guys have. And these two gentlemen did something very heroic that day. The folks that lived at that residence, they are okay. However, there were signs that there was some inhalation of that heavy heated smoke and gas, and we took precautions for that for those folks. But I just want to quickly say that from the bottom of our heart, the actions that day truly do allow people that could have potentially perished in a fire. You two gentlemen had a heavy hand in making that positive for them. So Grants Pass Fire Rescue has put together a certificate and a coin that reads, Life-Saving Award, Grants Pass Fire Rescue presents to Kevin Bishop and Brian Hegman the certificate of appreciation in recognition of your life-saving performance of assisting a mother, child, and their dog from a second-story window during the structure fire at their residence on Wednesday, January 12, 2022. Without your efforts, the outcome of these individuals would have been much different. Your willingness and selfless actions to assist is appreciated by all members of our community. And this will be signed Deputy Chief Randy DeLong and Battalion Chief Lloyd Lawless. And gentlemen, the City of Grants Pass and Grants Pass Fire Rescue, thank you. So,
all right, well, thank you.
I've dropped certificates off. I will say that as quickly as we were trying to put stuff together, there's two signatures that were failed to be put on there. However, we've redone the certificates right here. I will get them to the school tomorrow, but the certificates and the coins were given to Kristen, and she will make sure that our two gentlemen that we're honoring will get those.
Great, thank you very much.
Again,
Brian and Kevin, thank you for representing the district so well and for your heroic measures. So thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, 2.4, Superintendent Kolb.
Yeah, so a different type of hero that serves our community. It is National School Board Recognition Month, and so on behalf of district administration and district staff throughout the district, we just appreciate the time. You have committed a ton of time, especially this school year, and you have committed to many more meetings in service for our district and our community. And so I am just representing on behalf of the district and our patrons, our appreciation for you as a school board. We do have a little token of appreciation down here that you'll see later, some nice Yeti coffee mugs, because everybody needs one, right? But anyway, the school board is tough work for those who don't really understand what goes on in supporting our community and our schools. So on behalf of us all, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I know that in the daily email I get from OSBA, they've been showing pictures of all the school boards around the state, and I was dreading seeing my picture come up. And so I quickly deleted that email as soon as it came and decided we need to take new pictures if we're going to have to keep showing my picture like that. So anyway, 2.5, our construction excise tax, which was just a memorandum from Sherry. Kirk, do we need any more explanation on that? Or are there any questions from the board on that?
Unless the board has questions, it's pretty self-explanatory, but Director Ely is here should you have questions.
Do any of the board members have questions on that? Okay.
Okay.
All right, 2.6, out-of-state travel, math conference to New Orleans or New Orleans, depending on where you're from and how you'd like to say it. So any comments, Kirk, on that?
No comments. This is a nationally recognized, probably the best math conference available in the nation. And we elementary, we're going to take a crew of elementary folks to this. It's a focal point of instructional improvement for the district is mathematics at all levels. And these are carryover Title I dollars that need to be expended. And this is one of those approved expenditures. So just informing the board of this out-of-state travel.
Okay, great. We'll go on to 3.0, our consent agenda. So we have approval of our 2025, our January 25th, 2022 board agenda, as well as our board minutes from our January 11th meeting. So we'll entertain a motion to approve those from one of our board members.
Member DeLaGrange, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? I saw Cliff's mouth moving, so I'm assuming he seconded it. Cliff, why don't you raise your hand if you want a second, or you can unmute yourself. All right, so Cliff's going to second that for us. Any further comments? Tanya, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Tanya, can you unmute yourself? I think you're still on mute.
Does not show her as muted right now, Todd. Her audio is being a little wonky. I will step in while we figure that out. So board member Coleman, thumbs up. Good. Board member going across my screen, Brownell.
Yes.
Board member Nelson.
Yes.
Board member Wilkins.
Yes.
And going through board member DeLaGrange.
Yes.
And board member Neville.
Yes.
And I think that was 7.
Okay, great. Thank you. That motion carries. So we'll go on to 4.0, our reports. And our first report is Reach for Success. Principal Thompson, we will turn the time over to you.
That was technically 6. I think Gary's not here.
I thought I maybe saw Gary's Richardson. I see his down at the bottom. So Gary Richardson. If you would like to unmute, you can chime in.
I believe that my phone is being muted, so I'm using my computer. Is that coming through?
It is coming through, Gary. We can hear you.
Okay, so yes.
Okay, thank you, Gary. All right, now we'll go on to 4.0, Reach for Success. Principal Thompson, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. It's my pleasure to introduce the Reach for Success class. This is the first year this class has been offered at Grants Pass High School. When Michelle Napier left the classroom and went into administration, we spent last year, which was obviously a different year in education, without replacing her. As we replaced her this year, we put a lot of thought into what might be most beneficial to students. And as you know, we've had a great deal of attention to our 9th graders and keeping them on track for graduation, earning those 6 credits that are so necessary, and learning some of the skills they need to be organized and to be prepared for their high school success and beyond. It's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Craven. She is our teacher for the Reach for Success course at Grants Pass High School and has done a phenomenal job in organizing that class. Sarah has roots in San Diego and Arizona, and in fact, introduced a course very similar to this in San Diego when she taught there. We were lucky enough to have her and her husband settle in Grants Pass several years back, and she's been substituting at some elementary schools and brings that love of learning to our high school classroom. Without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Craven.
Hello, thank you so much, Ryan. I'm happy to be here. I just want to thank the board and everyone for inviting us to share this program. I love it. Ever since I started teaching high school back in the early 2000s, ninth graders were something that they would come into the school and they were new and fresh, and I just loved the innocence that they portrayed and the excitement that they had for school. So I've always had just a passion for ninth grade. My credential is in English language arts and history, and Ryan said that we felt if we could reach ninth graders in English, we devoted one Friday a month to a ninth grade success program pilot back in Flagstaff, Arizona, actually. And we felt passionate enough to give up our core teaching area to say these ninth graders need to be taught how to figure out a GPA, that this is their last stop before adulthood, college and prep and homework and study habits and time management, because when it's all thrown at. So I do have a passion for that. And then I've spent the last several years here in GP subbing in the high school or in the elementary school level. And I bring some of that to in here, which I'd like to go, if we can, back to the first slide. To the pictures. Yep. So last year when I was subbing at Redwood quite a bit, I borrowed this from a dear friend and helped set it up here. And I wondered when I got this job if this was something that my high schoolers would do. Ryan and Keith invited me to be part of the discovery training before school started. And they had an activity that was very much like this, where students would come in and identify. And I started thinking, we did it at the elementary school level, where kids would show on hands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 where they were, and you could let them kind of decompress and get back in. So I'm like, I wonder if we could do that in this class. So this is how we start every class in Reach for Success. It's called Circle Up. They say their name and a 5-point check-in. So how are you feeling today? And then I asked them a question: what's your hardest class? And initially when I had asked to do this, or had been asked to do this, we were gonna be in person, and I was gonna say, hey, so if you wanna share, how are you feeling? And you know, what was your hardest class in high school? We were gonna have the go around and do that, but it's a little bit more difficult in Zoom. So I always do it too. So I will just say I am Mrs. Craven, and I'm feeling kind of like a 3 right now because I'm nervous, and my hardest class was math. And it kind of diffuses some, just not behaviors, but just some level of anxieties when students come in. It gets them, if they have had a rough time in the hall, they're, you know, have been home for quite a long time, and all of the students that are in the hall, they either have maybe they dropped their backpack, or they're late for school, or they didn't get food. It allows us the first 5 minutes of class to figure out, okay, is there something I need to address before we can start learning? And it's really opened the lines of communication, and it's probably my favorite time. We start the class, it takes about 2 minutes. We go around. I love that my classroom's a circle, because we just circle up and we share that. And then the students will spend about 5 minutes in their planner, writing down their agenda and what they want to do that day. And that allows me, when I have a student say that they're at 4 or 5, I can go around and ask them, okay, what's going on? Why are you at a 4? Why are you at a 5? And keep them in the classroom for that learning time. I am so fortunate that we have mentors for the 9th grade success program. I have 3 different ones that are in my class. And sometimes a student needs to take a walk. Sometimes they want privacy, and they'll talk to the mentor about what's going on, and then they can come back and they can engage. And we've been able to do a lot of problem solving with starting the class this way. So I'm so proud of my students for the buy-in that they have. If you want to go to the next slide. A little bit about my class. So Reach for Success is a class, and it's got the current student in mind. We address a combination of academic and social emotional needs for the ninth grader, especially during this post-pandemic school year. Just to give some perspective, the last academic year that these students have had fully was sixth grade. So we address in this class, we address a lot of gaps, we address a lot of fears, and we also address a lot of successes. Topics that we learn about include, as you can see the stars, we do organization and binders and planners. They're required to have a binder. It was very rewarding. I had the opportunity to work with a student who didn't have anyone ever putting a binder together with him at the beginning of the year and teaching them how to label the labels and putting the stuff in there and just spending that time. It's so valuable. We talk about workload and time management on a daily basis. A big unit that we talk about is effective communication with teachers, with peers, and the community members. A lot of my students want jobs. A lot of my students want to have a conversation with a teacher about how to raise their grade or improve their study habits, and we talk about ways to do that. We do goal setting and we access the four-year planners. I have the students look at what you want to do long-term, what classes you want to take, all that GP has to offer, and we fill out that four-year planner. We talk about communicating with counselors and deadlines when the class requests come. So if you want to get in the awesome e-care classes that we have, you request early and you have it in there ahead of time. We spend a good amount of time talking about GPA calculation. I talk about with my students how it's very fluid. It changes day by day right now as we are coming up on the end of the semester. And we look at, if you get a B in a class versus a C, what that does to your GPA and how it kind of all averages out. We talk about that and the need for credits and how you have to have a certain number of credits, and it's, coming from your last academic year of sixth grade, there's a big learning curve to what is ninth grade. We do note taking and focus notes. As you saw, we do a lot of social emotional regulation. We annotate readings and do note takings. And I hit them hard with an academic paragraph writing unit where they can write a paragraph about anything. Okay, next slide. This is our classroom. It's room 205. It was primary importance that I created a space that my students were very excited to come to every day. You'll notice the wiggle chairs. I have flexible seating in there. I'm at a corner in the high school and I have students stop by and they will ask, how can I get in this classroom? And I just think the classroom feeling adds so much. There's so many great electives here at GP. And my class is an elective. It's somewhat a forced elective for some of our students. And I want to make sure that if they are forced to take this class, that it is going to be a place that they want to be, a place of happy, calm, peacefulness, and a place where they can get work done and just regulate from the busy halls and life of a teenager. Two more pictures are on the next slide. Oh, we went super fast. So this was a video on the right side. Oh, there's another picture of the classroom. We've got a Believe poster in the wall with lights, and then there's an up close seating. And then the next slide, there I have flexible surfboard seating on the ground where they can choose to work somewhere around the room, isolated if they want, on a flexible seating. And these were all given by Donors Choose. The black was a picture in the Google slide that was embedded, or a video, excuse me. And that was just showing those wiggle chairs that I had. And those were all donated by generous community members through Donors Choose. So wanted to thank them for that. My students know that I am data driven. Throughout the 9 weeks, and then the second 12 weeks, we give surveys to ask the students what they like about the class, how they would change things. This one spoke to me. I had probably about 100, well, I would say 90% of my students fought me on having a binder on the first week of school. They're too heavy. They have their own organizational system. They were going to figure it out. Lots of different reasons. But after the first 9 weeks, we talked about that. Almost 90% of my students responded that their binder was useful in maintaining academic success. At the beginning of the year, thanks to the school and Ryan, we supplied many students with a binder. We talked about the importance of having the right resources if you want to be successful. We use lots of examples and tools. You know, if you want to drill a hole, you use a drill, you don't use a screwdriver. If you want to be successful in high school, you have to figure out how to be organized with a binder or an accordion file or folders. So we talked about that. We do weekly binder checks to maintain that organization. The remaining 10% that you see on that graph, I talked to them and I said, okay, what don't you like about this binder system? They said it's too heavy and too bulky for their desks for pulling it out. So through some generous donations, we also switched them over to folders and the accordion files. Avid 12 students have been in to talk to my kids a couple times, and the Avid 12 students told my students, I can't believe how organized you are for a freshman. If I was disorganized when I was a freshman, it would have made my life so much easier, and to see their faces glow was awesome. So that was good. And then the last thing is just something fun that we do here in class. When I had my own students, so my youngest is now a 6th grader at South. And when I was a mom at home reading books to my kids, I would read them, and being an English teacher, think of, okay, man, that teaches some big picture ideas. So we have what we'll call Throwback Thursdays in our class, where we look at some children's books. These students still love to be read to. I will be reading, even though it's Dr. Seuss, and I tell them it's not because I think anything of a reading level. It's because we dig super deep into social emotional, which I'll take you in a second. But we take classic children's books that can be read in one sitting and have a great social emotional theme that can be discussed, analyzed, and written about. We've had some deep discussions about Oh, the Places You'll Go, The Diggingest Dog, and I Wish I Had Duck Feet. During Christmas, we watched Frosty the Snowman, and we analyzed his use of time management, as well as other characters in there for our time management unit. And we did Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, all about loving our differences. My 9th graders are teenagers, but they're still children. They don't like to be called that, but they're still students, and they're still young, and they still like to have some of that that care and nurturing. So we will read these books. The Diggingest Dog, we did at the end of the 9 weeks, when it talked about how there is not too big of a hole that you can't dig yourself out of. You have to surround yourself with the right people and the right friends, and be willing to clean it up and make amends. And then I Wish I Had Duck Feet, we did at the beginning of the year, and we talked about being who we are created to be, not trying to take on all of these other different traits that aren't ours, and just being grateful for who we are and being effective in who we are as a person right here, right now in this classroom. So they were some great, great topics. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you. When we did Oh, the Places You'll Go, we read that at the beginning of the 9th grade year. These are the themes that we identified, and we did 2 activities with it. We did a writing assignment, and we did a group activity. The themes, the games you can't win because you play against you. We talked about how sometimes we are our own worst enemies, and what do we get on our own way of doing. One of the themes is everyone is just waiting. What are you waiting for? We talked about how sometimes in life we're waiting to graduate. We're waiting for the semester to end. We're waiting for Friday to come. But what are we doing right now to be the most productive adults we can be, or humans we can be? This one was huge. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. We talked about the COVID slump that a lot of us have found themselves in, and how we get out of that, being back in school, which is huge and super positive. I don't choose to go there. which is a theme where we talked about what we want to stay away from, what we don't want in our lives. And the last one is you can steer yourself any direction you choose, taking ownership. These students, and I tell them, I said, you're at the age where you get to decide a lot. You have a lot of control over your life, more than you think you do. You walk into these doors every day, and we're glad you're here. But you get to choose that. You get to engage in your education and really work on them to become those very independent learners and thinkers that we're trying to raise in here. So that is what Reach for Success is. I have 2 students. I had 3, but one is out sick. I have 2 students waiting over here that would like to say something. But before we do that, the last slide is questions. If you had any questions about the Reach for Success program or anything that I shared.
This is Debbie Brownell. You say some students do not have a choice to be there. What kind of reasons are they?
So like when the actual elective, like picking the elective?
Yeah, yes, are some students there because they've failed other courses, or what? Why are they there?
So the class can be identified as it's suggested and encouraged for particular students who either they have really good attendance, but through COVID we noticed that they struggled. They had 2 or more Fs coming into high school, and we wanted them to be successful and have an extra support class with the 9th grade team and an extra mentor and a small class and learning organizational habits. So it was put on their schedule to take this class.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Did you want to add anything to that, Ryan?
Nope, great job, Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah, I do have one question. This is Scott
Yes.
Nelson. So I have sat in many meetings with Principal Thompson, and we have talked about the importance of that freshman year. And if students aren't succeeding, if they're failing, then their trajectory for graduation is significantly diminished. As you've been working with these students, and are we tracking to see how they're doing with their other classes? And I know we haven't been doing this long enough to know about graduation rates yet from students who attend these, but what are your expectations for students in your class with regards to ultimately graduating from high school?
Yes, that excellent question. So I am part of I think there's 6 different 9th grade success teams. So the teachers or the students are teamed by a science teacher and an English teacher. And I have gone to 9th grade success meetings with Rochelle Watson, who is a head teacher over this program, and she tracks where they are. We just had meetings all this week on our preps and 2 after school, where we analyze data to see what students are failing, which classes, what can be done. Does a mentor need to get involved? Is it something me as a Reach teacher can get involved? Do we teach the student to advocate for themselves? Are they that close to passing a class, or is there more going on? So there is an entire team and network, which I think I am so grateful to work for this district that realizes that, because I agree, and it's been a passion of mine for a long time. With that 9th grade class, and then I check I check it as part of my job in my class. I check where they are in their classes. Like right now we're doing an end of semester. We've been doing it for 3 weeks, where we evaluate all our grades. We write down missing assignments that we can do or they can do. And then we hopefully stay on track with our current assignments, make up a test, and we talk about how to reach, how to email a teacher, talk to a teacher about making up a test, even when you may not feel like it, even when it seems hard. And then watching that grade hopefully rise is the goal when we do our end of semester plan or end of quarter plan. And we've been evaluating that 3 weeks, and then we look at how that affects our GPA and the different, when it goes up from a C to a B. And then, well, can you do anything to get it to an A? or do you stop at the B and work on a different class? And kind of teaching them how to order of getting classes up if they're failing any, and then after they're passing all the classes, how to strive for excellence, essentially.
Thank you. This is Board Member Wilkins. What kind of buy-in do we have? How many students does the program support?
That's a great question. So I have 98 students set on my roster next semester. I had enough students this year, so I have about 100 students. I teach 6 periods. I do have one group of 10th graders that are going to not have a support class like this. They felt it was important enough for that 10th grade group, since they didn't have school last year, to have this one class. But I had enough students request that they be put in a Reach 2.0. They wanted to stay in this class and have this support next semester. I have 4 graduating to Avid, which I think is kind of my one of my ultimate goals. I have 4 students that applied to Avid and are have been accepted and going on to the 9th grade Avid class. And then I have 16 who have who want to stay in a Reach 2.0. I actually have more than that, but several had scheduling issues and couldn't do that due to band as 4th period, and a lot of them happened to be band members. And there was just a schedule conflict. They obviously, and I agree with them, chose band because they had good grades. But so does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay, yes.
I
Are
think
you
that's,
ready?
yeah, let's go ahead, and if you have some students, we'd love to hear from them.
Okay, I will go get them, just a second. Okay. Come on up. Oh, yep.
Hello, I'm Abigail Smith. I've been in Reach since the beginning of the school year. I'm going into Reach 2. At first, I thought this class was just going to be like an extra work period, but then once I actually attended the class, I realized that it was super helpful. Setting up like 4-year planners, doing vision boards, learning how to correctly take notes has set me up on a straight path for my other classes, and is probably the only reason why I have good grades. Also, Miss Craven has made her class into a safe and calm environment, so much so that when I was given the opportunity to go to Avid, I declined because I wanted to stay with her in the curriculum that she is teaching. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Are any questions from our board? Well, great, nice job. Thank you for talking to us tonight and coming to our meeting.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Hello, I'm Isabella Viscara. I'm a 9th grader, and this class really helped me, and like it made me more organized for this whole year. Last year I had like almost all F's, and this year I turned it around with this help in this class. This class really helped me because Miss Craven, we had this MLK article that we read, and she kept on telling us burn the midnight oil, which like she made us push us more, and because it was worth it, and that really helped me. And this is a really good environment. She asked us how we're doing, and none of my teachers do that. They don't check up on us, but she does. And yeah, it just helped me, and I don't have any F's anymore. She makes sure we go to our support time, and that's it.
Well, thank you, Isabella.
Any last questions at all before we wrap that up?
Any other questions from our board? Sarah, thank you. It's clear
Thank
your students
you.
love you. We
Oh.
appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to work for this district. I'm very, there's a lot of, I love my job. I love my students. I love Grants Pass High School, and I love the district as a whole. So thank you for the opportunity to work here. It's a very happy, fun place.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Principal Thompson, anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, terrific job, Sarah. We're looking forward to, I think a board member or two mentioned something about data. And it is something we're tracking over time. Kudos to her. Kudos to the 9th grade success team too, led by Rochelle Watson and her mentors that work in that classroom. And we thank the board for the support in having that class offered.
Great. Well, I look forward to that data. In fact, we'll expect at least a 95% graduation rate with all the success we're hearing about, Principal Thompson. So no pressure or anything, but
no pressure at all.
All right. Well, thank you. That's great. 4.2 GPHS Theater Program Overview. Dr. Evans, why don't you introduce our presenters tonight?
Dr. Evans, you promoted me. I appreciate
well, you know what?
that.
It's my world. You could be a doctor.
I appreciate that. Hello, everybody. We are always looking for ways to improve what we offer at Grants Pass High School. And when you have a teacher that you're going to hear from in a minute who's as enthusiastic as Julia Cuppy is, you want to support her and her efforts. What Julia is going to present to you in just a moment is a new program of study in career and technical education. We've been talking about adding additional programs of study for a number of years. It's important that the board listen to this presentation, and there will be some future investments that we'll need to make in order for this program of study to really thrive, mostly around infrastructure and the Performing Arts Center needing to be redesigned, expanded, additional storage and classroom space added. But as Julia shares with you the importance of this CTE program, she's going through a process right now of getting this CTE program of study approved through the Oregon Department of Education, which is no easy task. And we just really want to support her and her enthusiasm, but also need to make sure we see the vision she has for the future. So Julia is a familiar face to us. She'll explain all of that in a minute, but she's back at Grants Pass High School and going to share with you her vision for turning our theater department into a career and technical ed program of study. Julia, welcome.
Thank you, Trisha, and thank you so much for giving me the time to speak to you all tonight. Just like Sarah was saying, I am so thrilled and honored to be back here at Grants Pass High School. I used to be on staff here in 2013, 2014, and then ended up deciding to go into San Diego to earn my MFA in musical theater, and actually expanded my skill sets and knowledge in a way that I'm super excited to now be bringing back here to the community and to the students here at the high school. So I want to share a little bit about how we want to see the CTE program evolve and develop. And if you could go ahead and go to the next slide. I wanted to first start off with just telling you a little bit about me. This is myself and my husband. I have two daughters, a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old now. I grew up in a military family, and I traveled all over the place, lived in, I went to 13 different schools, my K through 12 education. I graduated finally from North Medford High School, where I actually earned the Ford Family Scholarship, stayed here in the state of Oregon to get my Bachelor of Arts in Theater Performance. I got my Master's in Teaching and Theater Education from SOU, then ended up going to get my MFA in Musical Theater at San Diego State. I'm a theater professional. I'm part of the Actors Equity Association as an actor and a stage manager. I've professionally directed and produced, and was an arts administrator at La Jolla Playhouse in La Jolla, California for 6 years as their director of education, which is a part of the executive senior leadership of this regional theater that actually won the Regional Theater Tony Award back, I think, in like 2010. And so it gave me a lot of exciting resources and networks to now bring back into my position here. And I want to share it with the students. I want to share it with the community. And that's actually the foundation of the CTE program, is this professional work that I get to share and integrate into the curriculum for the students. And then I also have my CTE credential from the state of California that I'm transferring here to the state of Oregon. So let's go to the next slide. And just a couple of things I wanted to just make it very clear about, and I'm sure you're very well aware of the CTE, the amazing CTE programs that we hear at the high school. But the most CTE programs, the main goal is that it leads students to occupations in high demand, high wage careers, and specifically for technical theater, which is what our program would be, in the creative industry. And I wanted to give you a little bit of statistics to help you understand the scope and the opportunity that's present in the creative industry. Please go to the next slide. So here are some quick facts about the creative industry. Here in the state of Oregon, the arts and culture sector contributes $8.1 billion to Oregon's economy compared to the agriculture and forestry industry at $3.7 billion, with another 67,000 jobs available. On a national scale, the value added to the GDP by arts and cultural production is 5 times greater than that of the agricultural sector, 60 billion more than construction and 227 billion more than transportation and warehousing to the US economy. I share these facts with you to let you know that these are high demand, high wage careers in the creative industry that our students are actually already prepping to be a part of by taking the classes that we currently offer. And as we develop the CTE program, it will only put them in a competitive edge to go into this industry with skill sets that can make them employable right after they graduate. Next slide, please. There's a couple of things about our area that makes us very unique, and that is the fact that we are actually one of the leading areas of the creative industry in the state of Oregon. There is the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, that is a $44 million nonprofit regional theater that is a national player in our theater community. And I've actually already reached out to them and talked to them about partnering on this CTE program of study, as there will be actually 2 programs of study with technical theater here in Southern Oregon, Ashland High School, and then also us here at the Grants Pass High School. Oregon Shakespeare Festival is a partner for both, will be a partner for ours as well as Ashland High School. The Brit Festivals is as many of you I'm sure have attended, another opportunity for students to work in the live event process, as well as in sound and audio, as well as house management, box office. All of those things are under the umbrella of technical theater. We have the expo and the amazing concerts as we go there. Southern Oregon Audiovisual is actually one of the local companies that manage and support many live events and venues here locally. And I had a conversation with the owner of that organization saying, do you have the opportunity to hire students right now if we were having this CTE program available to them? And he said, without even a hesitation, said, yes, as soon as they graduate, let me know, because I would like to hire them right now. We have the historic Rogue Theater, as well as the Oregon Cabaret Theater, another professional theater in town, and the Criterion in Medford. These are all organizations that I have already established relationships with, as well as developing those relationships to make them part of this program of study as partners for students to work in, either in like a paid internship or shadowing, or also actually as employees. And this actually also connects to any live event that's happening anywhere in this area. And that is actually now becoming more and more popular as we're pulling out of our COVID times that we're all in. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the proposal of the trajectory of the course map for the department. Each student would be taking Theater Overview, which is a course we actually have already in our course catalog. It hasn't been offered for a few years, but it would be something we would bring back. This Theater Overview class is an elective, so it's student choice. They would be choosing to take this class to then get an overview of what theater offers. We will actually give them a little taste of performance and a little taste of technical theater and what that means. After that class has been completed, then they go into 2 different tracks, either the performance track or the technical theater track. Those students interested in the performance track will then go into acting 1. They can continue on in acting 2, and then the productions class, and I'll explain that a little bit more. But the CTE program of study would follow the technical theater pathway, that those students coming out of the Theater Overview class that are inclined to being more skilled in technical theater would take Technical Theater 1, where they would actually go deeper within the skill sets and standards of that program of study. As they finish Technical Theater 1, they would then be ushered into Technical Theater 2, or in our productions class, which is actually an applied course where they would be part of a creative team producing shows that would actually be here at the PAC or in the community at large, as there are multiple ideas about what we would be doing in that productions class. That particular class can be taken over and over again. That's why it would be 1, 2, and 3. This is a course map that allows students to enter our program at any stage of their high school career, but gives a lot of opportunity for a freshman to see themselves through a 4-year course of study through the theater program. And if they develop and go through those courses, they could then be graduate with that CTE skill set in the technical theater area, ready to be employed by any of those earlier companies that I mentioned already. All right, go to the next slide. And something I wanted to just bring up is that these skills are transferable, that the technical theater skills, if they decided not to go into technical theater as a long-term career, that would be perfectly acceptable because of the actual skills that they earned are also something that many companies are looking for. Recently, a Fortune 500 companies were surveyed, and they said they are looking for people who have empathy and creative problem solving in their new job candidates. And theater allows students to learn those firsthand through the exercises, activities, productions that we put on. So this would be something that they would learn: critical thinking skills, creativity skills, collaboration, and communication that could be transferred to any vocation that they would want after high school. And so I wanted to make that very clear that this is also something that can be supportive of any student with any occupation goal that they have. Next slide. And then, of course, the expectations of those students that we would be learning in class is that communication is key, collaboration is active, and participation is required. Creativity requires them to be open and dedicated. And then critical thinking demands time and reflection and discussion about the creative process. And that's a through line that we have in all of our classes about how do we reflect on our creative process and how do we learn from it each time that we go through it. And next slide. So the next steps, and like Trisha mentioned, we're submitting this proposal for it to be a new program of study with the Oregon Department of Education. That process will take multiple months. Once that's approved, we'll implement it in a plan in stages. A proposed proposal plan here is stage 1, that we offer these new courses in this pathway. And then stage 2 is start to really integrate and work with our partners and start getting students working in the field, as well as bringing those partners to our campus. Then stage 3, we would want to expand and grow our infrastructure, start to hire faculty that would be skilled in other areas to expand our reach for our students. And then ultimately making sure that those people and those students were supported by the infrastructure at large, as this particular center is now nearing almost 25 years and needing to have some more industry standard pieces integrated and upgraded. So that's sort of the next steps. And I know this is it can take time and it can take a team. This is definitely not something that is solely possible with just one person at the helm. This is really a community effort. And it's also in response to student need and what's best for students. And so I just really appreciate the support and the enthusiasm that I'm already seeing from you and the administration here at the high school, as well as the students. They're really excited about the opportunity to get back into creating together and being part of this larger theater community that we have here in Grants Pass. So are there any questions that you might want to ask or any comments that you'd like to share?
Do you have any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, but this is Member Wilkins, and I'm excited for the excitement and the freshness that you bring to a program and expanding our CTE. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have just one question if no one else does. I'm curious, how many students would you anticipate being able to go through your program, either on an annual basis or through 4 years?
Well, I know I have about approximately 90 students in the stage classes that I teach right now, and that's only in this one semester. So as we would grow this program, we could easily hit 200 students over an entire year, especially if there was an additional faculty member helping me, as I also contractually and just there's only 24 hours in the day kind of thing, we would need a little extra help. As I know, the students are already eager and excited about the potential of this program. Once word gets out and once this program really is advertised, I think it definitely will be very popular. But at this time, it's about 90 students that are in our stagecraft classes right now that would be ultimately in the CT program as it's approved.
So Director Evans, just a quick question. Have we looked at the number of faculty we would anticipate needing to hire? And do we have a number for our infrastructure needs, or is that something that is still kind of being developed?
Julia can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when she puts higher faculty, I think she's thinking one additional teaching staff member. Is that correct, Julia?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And I think that as we develop the course proposal to ODE, having somewhat of a larger 5, 10, even 20-year goal in mind is sort of the plan. And that's the thought process of the thought work that we're going to go through this next year.
And then on the infrastructure part, Sherry would be able to help me with this. I know that as part of our bond work and effort over the last couple of years, we had looked at needing to expand. Storage is a huge issue in the PAC, not only for our theater arts program, but for our band, orchestra, and choir program. We don't have enough classroom spaces for the number of students served in our fine arts program in the PAC. And so adding on to the PAC, I don't have a dollar figure, but when we get ready to go out for a bond, adding on to the PAC will definitely be a high priority.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I agree. Those are popular programs. We do want to support them. So looking at what that means in the future is, I'm sure we'll talk more about that as time goes on. But any other questions for Julia? Well, thank you. I'll just echo what Cassie said. We're excited about the enthusiasm you bring, and this is going to be a great program for the students. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Keep it up.
All right. Director Evans, graduation and dropout rate.
Yes, I know you received the data we sent to you last Thursday, became public last Thursday, and we were able to, at that time, also look at how we compare to state averages and other district outcomes as well. I first want to say kudos to our high school administration team, particularly Ryan and his leadership. It was not an easy year. 2021 was our year of shutdown. We started in full CDL at Grants Pass High School and in all of our programs at secondary. Our students really didn't start coming back on campus until about March when we started our hybrid. And it wasn't until the last, I think, 10 days of school that we had school every day. So when we started looking at our graduation rate, we were pretty pleased with, we expected a drop and we were pleased that it didn't drop that much. Todd, if you'd go to the graph that I prepared, because I appreciated last year, Gary asked me if I would put this together in a graph, and I did. And so I think we saw a little bit of a dip, but really the last 2 years of COVID, we've been able to maintain about where we've been with our graduation and completion rate. Compared to the state average and local other district, I know I'm reaching out to Oregon Department of Ed and asking some questions about how some numbers are calculated. Compared to the state was 80.63% of the students in the state of Oregon graduated on time with the 4-year cohort. Ours was 77.69, so about a difference of 2%. Our completion rate as a district was about 81%, and the state was about 83%. Looking at our subpopulations, which is really something we're required to do, to take a look at where did we see a dip in our data. And the two subpopulations that dropped by about 7%, 8%, Our special ed population took the biggest dip in the 2021 school year. That's not surprising to us in CDL. It was really hard to meet the needs of our students with learning disabilities. Our other group that also took a drop in graduation rate was our homeless population, dropped by about 3% overall. We did see some gains though. Our Hispanic, Latino, multiracial groups both showed gains in our graduation rate. So we were pleased with that. And we've reported in years past that our male population was not succeeding to the same level as our female population. And although that is still true, the gap has closed. And the male population for the class of 2021 was only about 1% difference than the female population. Our 5-year graduation rate was very similar. That's the second graph there. In terms of outcomes, we differed by the state on our completion rate, again, by about 2%. Our graduation rate actually was quite a bit different, about 5% different. Where I know Ryan and I we had a couple conversations this last week when the data came out public, is our dropout rate. And if you go down to that last graph, you'll see a very large spike in the number of students who dropped out compared to the 1920. We've been going down, and then last year we had a pretty significant uptick to 3.4% dropout rate. The state average is 1.8%. Some local school districts, I'm reaching out trying to get some answers for what did you do? Why is your dropout rate as low as it is? To learn a little bit more and see what we can improve upon. But again, given the circumstances of the 2021 school year, we worked really hard to try to maintain our student population. And we did see a pretty significant spike in dropout rate. That is what we wanted to share with you this evening. If there's any questions about the data as you've been able to look at it, and Ryan and I are here to answer.
Can I just ask the difference between a dropout and a non-completer? Is that someone who finished the coursework, they just failed enough classes and they didn't reach the credits, or
yeah, it's complicated. A dropout is any 9th through 12th grader that during the course of the school year left Grants Pass High School, and actually they calculate it 7th through 12th grade, but they only report it to the public 9th through 12th grade, that attended school sometime that school year and then left and didn't necessarily enroll at another school, and we didn't get a request for records, said they were going to homeschool their kid, but they didn't register with homeschooling, said they were going to get into a GED program at RCC, but they didn't get enrolled into a GED program. We make a lot of effort to capture that 9th through 12th grade group. So that's a 1-year snapshot of any student who sets foot on the campus at Grants Pass High School. A non-completer is part of the 4-year and 5-year data calculation. Non-completers are students who started the year of their cohort, not necessarily at Grants Pass High School. Some of our non-completers are students that we had for maybe a month or two. It's a function of how the state calculates the numbers. A large number of the students are students we've had for a while, but we look at every student in depth. So a non-completer during the course of the 4 years or 5 years is a student who did not complete on time. So started 9th grade in a particular cohort, 4 years later, didn't get it done. They either continue on, that's why you see the continuing enrollment on the 4-year and even on the 5-year, because we keep trying to help kids get across the line, but the state stops calculating at the 5-year cohort. So that's a non-completer, is a student who went through 4 years or 5 years of high school and still did not earn a GED or their regular high school diploma or a modified diploma.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Do we have any questions or comments from the board members?
I see that Todd Neville clicked the little raise hand button on his iPhone.
Yep.
Sorry, I can't see everybody. So if you have a comment, please don't wait for me to call on you. Just chime in.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so looking at those numbers, obviously this is from last year, and I'm just curious about the elephant in the room for this year, projections for this mass exodus of 550 students plus, and what that does to our numbers. Do they ding our numbers, and everyone that loses students based on whatever reason? I'm just curious how that's going to skew numbers for this year when we're going through a massive exodus.
I'll probably want to come back with some real data and numbers to explain this, but the 500 is a K-12 loss of enrollment that has been reported to you in the past, not a high school loss of enrollment. At the high school, and I just recently shared this with high school administration and district office administration, between Grants Pass High School, GP Flex, Gladiola, our GED program, we're only about 100 students less at the high school, and those 100 students right now are dropouts. Right now, there's about 58 dropouts from Grants Pass High School. There's about 30 at Gladiola, about 15 from GP Flex. We are right now working to try to see if we can recover some of those kids for second semester and get them back and engaged again. So that loss of enrollment really isn't the loss at Grants Pass High School, but we are seeing students that are struggling to stay connected and have left school and haven't engaged in something else at this point. But we don't give up. We keep working it. So I do anticipate you will see a little bit of a ding again this next year.
Yeah, a dip. So thanks for clarifying that it does drop down into all the grade levels, and we're seeing more kids at the grade school then compared to high school dropout rate this year. And then one last question would be, if a child drops out and comes back, does that negate their dropout?
It certainly does. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. If they are enrolled with us again on the last day of school, they won't count as a dropout for us.
Thanks, Trish.
Trish, so we have a 3.5% dropout rate. What does it translate to in a raw number? Is that 50, 100, 20?
62.
62, okay. All right, any other questions from the board members?
And so we keep track of those 62 in regards to the Ys that they're dropping out.
Yeah.
Do we have files on all those kiddos?
Yeah.
It looked like in the newspaper that some of the other schools in the area attributed their success to really knuckling down and finding where the kids are and getting them on somebody else's numbers instead of theirs. And I know we've been trying to do that. I just wondered if we've made any progress.
Debbie, I got to tell you, I'm really struggling with some data that I saw come out of other districts, and I did reach out to Oregon Department of Ed to call it into question. We do a really good job of being extremely ethical and rule followers about how the rules apply to how you can code a student when they're a dropout and when they're not a dropout. And I'm not suggesting that other districts don't, but something's really wacky to me in terms of our dropout rate compared to a lot of districts in the region. We do keep track, and each student is kind of a different story about why. You've asked that question, and I appreciate it every year. Like, what's the trend? I would say, attendance is a huge factor. We've got to find a way to help parents get their kids to school so we can educate them. And a lot of kids just develop chronic attendance issues, even starting at elementary, and it carries forward. And then they're just so far in a hole, they have a really hard time figuring out how do they find their path forward.
Right, thank you.
Trish,
So
thank
this is member Richardson. I managed to make it through this time.
Yep.
Ah, good. So, Trish, I appreciate the graphs. It makes it much easier to see what our trends look like. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Cassie, did you have a comment or question?
I just wanted to say, first of all, Trish, thank you for working through all of this and the teams that you have in place. We had a dropout prevention coordinator person. Do we still have that person, or?
No, I'll just cut to the chase. No, we do have what Justin Wright's position was an attendance coordinator, and he really chased our dropouts. When the shutdown happened, Justin actually got a job somewhere else. It was COVID. We didn't replace the position. We did just rehire this year, and really pleased with the work that Amy Jackson has been able to do. But her focus has really been on trying to get, we have such an attendance issue right now that her ability to focus on dropouts has been minimized because of the number of students not coming to school regularly that are enrolled with us. So unfortunately, I'm hoping that once we kind of get back to regular business, we'll be able to kind of restructure and look at how we move forward recovering our dropouts.
Okay, well, thank you for your continued effort.
I do want to remind you that next year you're going to see much different data. Gladiola will be reported as a separate school next year from Grants Pass High School. And so although you see two lines this year, one's for Grants Pass School District and one's for Grants Pass High School, you're going to see a third dot next year. So we'll have the district number, we'll have Grants Pass High School, and then we'll have Gladiola. Oh, and we'll have GP Flex too. So 4 different dots on the grid for next year's graduation rate.
All right. Thank you, Trish. Anything else from the board on that item? All right. Well, we'll go on to 5.0, board reports and special concerns. So I will open up to our board members.
So I could give a quick book report on one of the books I read on our due to be voted on books calling On Passing. And I guess one of the points that I got from the book was the extreme loneliness, really, of being cut off from a significant part of their family and background and history. So I found that very interesting in exploring this book.
Debbie, can I ask for clarification? This is Cassie. Are you talking about Canyon's Edge?
No, the book is called Passing.
Oh, Passing. Okay, thank you.
And that book will be brought forward next month. We'll actually have Teresa Connolly, the department chair for the Language Arts Department, will be here to talk about all the books being recommended. We had emailed the board a list of books, and they're available for checkout in our office. And then Teresa will be available next board meeting to answer any questions and give you an overview of why books were selected, et cetera. So, and then we'll take action.
Okay.
I know we have all 8 books at my house, and my wife is almost done reading the last one, and I've been getting updates, so I know all about them, even though I haven't read them.
You're ahead of me.
Any other board reports, special concerns from our board members? Todd, did I see your hand up?
Yes, just a shout out that over the weekend, since we're talking about the arts programs, the music department did have the front page of the newspaper on the weekend, Courier. I might be a little biased in there since there may or may not be a Neville listed in the picture, but bottom line is we have a great arts program, music program, theater program in the making for even more development. And I would hope that we do not put any of those on the chopping block when the budget cuts are imminent.
I should also mention I participated in the mock interviews yesterday and today for mostly sophomores, giving them experience in how to handle themselves and answer questions in a job interview setting. And I find I always learn as much or more about myself as I do the students in this exercise, and recommend it highly if you ever get the chance to participate.
Okay. I have a few items as well just to talk about. So Doug Nelson, not my relation, but our superintendent search coordinator, has been emailing. He sent out a survey today, which all of you should have received an email with a number of to select questions that we would ask our interview candidates. And so I would just remind you to look at that. I think we have until the 1st of February to respond to that survey. I did do it this afternoon. It doesn't take very long. It takes about 5 minutes. So if you'd look through that and make your selections on the questions that we'd like to ask the superintendent candidates. There was probably 50 questions to select from. And so it's just looking at the ones that are the most important. The other, he emailed me today and said that in total they had 261 people make public comment about our superintendent search that they were able to collect. And it comes out to be about a 65-page pamphlet of all of the comments. And so those will be posted once they're formalized on their website and our school website. And a link will be sent to each of you so that you can review those comments at your leisure. If you would like, you can send us a written copy of that. So if you want to let Tanya know, we can make that request and get that going. Let's see, what else did I put on here that we needed to just talk about? I just want to give a brief COVID update. So one of the reasons why we're meeting on Zoom this week is because our COVID numbers in Josephine County are as high as they've ever been. We're averaging about 200 new cases a day. To put that in perspective, at the worst in our August and September surge, we were seeing about 130 positive tests a day. So we're well up there as far as people who are testing positive for COVID. Thankfully, not as many people are ill in the hospital. And while we're still ramping up in the surge, I think we expect to peak later this week or early next week. We still are seeing unprecedented numbers of cases, positive cases in our community. So I'm happy to take any questions on those things. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for the board?
This is Member Wilkins. I don't know if it's going to come in superintendent report, but how are we doing staff-wise and sub-wise and all of that through our schools?
So I don't have that information ready for you in a report. I think Director Evans and Directors Tola can give you some anecdotal information about sub rates. I do know that we're utilizing our emergency subs all over the district and stealing from different buildings. But Trish or Susan, would you have any comments on that right now?
Yeah, this is Susan Zatola. I'll just reiterate that what has saved us is having our emergency subs, our classified staff who stepped up, took a training, and have been filling in the classroom, and they have been doing a remarkable job. I've been able to observe some of them in action, and I'm really proud of them, and they're doing a great job, but we would not have been able to weather this current time period without them. So just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to them.
And from the secondary, I was just going to say from the secondary standpoint, I agree with Susan, but I would say our staffing issues have been most prevalent in our classified ranks. We've had to close a few programs at secondary, particularly around our life skills programs at North Middle School. But staff teaching classrooms, we've been able to do a pretty good job of getting things covered. It's a daily chore for the team out there, but they're getting it done.
Yeah, it's a daily puzzle every single morning. Just, okay, who's going to cover this? Who's going to cover that? Teachers covering for each other, teaching during their preps, principals talking to each other, and does anybody have somebody to spare, and sharing staff across schools. So it has definitely been all hands on deck, and really showing, when we say we are GP, sometimes it's more evident than others, and this has been one of those times.
It seems like an odd time to say excellent, and I'm glad that we have that relationship amongst our entire district. So thank you for maintaining the commitment to working towards that, even when it's hard every morning.
Member Brownell, so I chanced upon a article on the Oregonian through the OSBA education news feed, and was kind of castigating one of the districts further north from us because they were not utilizing the emergency substitute training program that we have utilized, and mentioned Grants Pass School District by name as being one of the being a much smaller district and utilizing it so much more effectively.
All right. Well, anything else for board reports and special concerns? All right, we'll go on to 6.0, our superintendent's report. Kirk?
I don't have any additional reports for the board this evening.
All right. Let's go on to our action items. So we have a first reading of amended policies and ARs, and you can see them all listed, 7.1 through 0.1 through 7.1.7. They are on suspected abuse of child reporting requirements, which the first four are required policies, and then the 0.5 and 0.6 are reporting of suspected abuse of child, which are highly recommended. And then 0.7 is hazing, harassment, intimidation, bullying, menacing, or cyberbullying reporting procedures for staff, which again is highly recommended. So I will entertain a motion to approve all of those first readings of amended policies. Cliff, was that you're muted. Was that a motion to approve? Okay, so we'll have a motion from Cliff. We'll take the thumbs up as a good sign. Do we have a second?
Member Brownell, second.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board members?
This member Richardson.
Oh, go ahead.
So my question relates to the fact that we have GBNAB and then it flops over to JHFE. Can somebody explain why we keep the same text in two places in our policies?
I could attempt to, Director Quintola may also be able to assist. I'm trying to pull up. So the initial letter is a categorical, so we have a G and a J. I'm pulling up board policies. So section G is personnel, the big scope of personnel policies. Section J is the big scope of student policies. And so we are required, even though they're essentially the same, they are directly affecting students and they are directly affecting staff. And so it does feel extremely redundant. I've always questioned that myself and never gotten a straight answer other than the one I attempted to give you. Director Cantola, you may have more to add.
Well, as one of my rules is, if you have the source of truth in more than one place, one of them is going to be wrong. And so I think I understand the need for keeping essentially the different categories, but somebody should be working out how the text is only in one place, and that when you go to either entry, it takes you to the single source of truth, the one piece of text. But, you know, hey, that's just one of those database things.
Thanks, Gary.
Well,
I had a comment, unless that was Cassie coming in.
well, I was just saying, is there a cross-reference? I'm looking on each one, reference back to one another. But you're good. Go ahead, Todd.
So I've noticed something missing, and that's the general public factor here. Coming from the federal side and even the city side back in the day when I worked for them, I don't see any reference to people outside of employees, volunteers, ourselves, directly connected to the school, even though parents and non-affiliated, non-school affiliated people come and potentially can harass and abuse.
So
go ahead.
The answer to that is it's about being mandatory reporters categorically under the law. And so we are mandatory reporters, as you are the board. However, we cannot compel, monitor, or require parents to follow this reporting system. And so be nice to be able to say everybody in our community is a mandatory reporter, but that's the logic behind that. I would open that up to Director Cantola, who's more familiar with these policies, but it has to do with who is categorically a mandatory reporter. I don't know if that answers the question for you or not, Todd.
Yes and no. I think what I'm getting at is if someone came in that was not a part of the listed people, namely employees, contractors, agents, volunteers, and students who are subject to the policy, and went against that policy, would we not have an obligation, and are we not putting ourselves at risk to deal with those outside of ourselves?
So maybe a couple different things, Todd. One, I think Kirk's correct about these policies just to address who's a mandatory reporter. There are other policies when it talks about sexual harassment and that kind of thing, that it has a category called third parties in there that very clearly states that anybody that's a volunteer, those types of things, is a third party, and we would have to report them. We would have to investigate, do those types of things if they're doing those things. So we can't require them to report, but we do have to investigate, do have to report them if they're involved in those things.
Okay, if you could refer me to those where it makes it obvious that an outsider comes in and it would not be tolerated, or at least there would be a way to report someone that's not affiliated with the school in some kind of abuse or harassment case. That's my only concern.
Send you some stuff. Absolutely.
Appreciate it, Dan.
All right, well, if there are no other comments on this, we have a motion and a second. Tanya, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please, on these 7.1 policies and ARs.
I think her microphone's still having problems. Kirk, you want to read the roll?
Yep, I'll do the roll. Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Coolman,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member De La Grange.
Yes.
And last but not least, Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That carries. And we'll go on to 7.2, our second and final reading of amended policies and ARs. So I think the last time we did this 2 weeks ago, we took all of the required policies first and then the highly recommended policies second. I don't know if we want to just take them all together, if everyone is comfortable with that, or if there's one that we want to talk about more. But I will open it up for a motion to our board members. We'll just tackle 7.2 at this point.
I move that, this is Member Brownell, I move that we approve article or amended policies 7.2.1 through 7.2.10.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Member De La Grange, second.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments? Okay, hearing none. Kirk, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
I will. Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Coolman,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member De La Grange,
Yes.
and Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 7.3 approval of resolution 2122-03 outdoor school appropriation transfer. We have a motion to approve that.
You need some explanation on that one before you make a motion.
Yes, please.
Sherry, go ahead.
All right. So this is for funding that we are going to get for outdoor school, and we had not been notified of the grant amount prior to building the 21-22 budget. And so we needed to do an appropriation to recognize the revenue and also to recognize the potential expenditure. And that's what this resolution is for.
Terry, this is Member De La Grange. Is this a one-time appropriation or is this an annual?
It has been an annual. And so on some of these, Brian, we're not sure if we're going to get them from year to year, but we have gotten this one for the last couple of years. So, you know, we can anticipate the possibility of getting it again next year. It's up to Oregon Department of Ed and I think it's OSU extension.
Yeah, it's OSU extension and it's a grant that I applied for. And so we hope that we'll get it every year, but you know, it depends on the level of funding that they have and then our application process.
Great. So now isn't the time to discuss how we use these funds, but can you tell me when the appropriate time to discuss that might be?
I'm not going to be the one to suggest the time, but I will tell you it's not a choice on how we use these particular funds. It's for a specific outdoor ed program. There's choice, you know, it's all just very lined out. There's a per pupil allocation. I check all the boxes, give them all the information they need, and that's how it's processed. But it's not like I can just make up whatever I want to do or what we want to do.
What's non-discretionary?
It's a restricted grant. And so the grantee tells us how we can spend the money. And so that is why we put the money in revenue function 3299. That is only for restricted grant revenues. And so like Susan said, they pretty much dictate to us how we have to spend that money. So it's not like we can say, oh, we want to send the kids to, I don't know, somewhere. It's prescripted to us.
Thank you.
And so just to clarify, this money was not included in the current budget. And we think that we might be able to get it. So we want to have it there in case it does come through and then we can spend it.
No, we already have been awarded the funding, Debbie. We just weren't awarded the money prior to when the budget was built.
Well, I move that we approve the resolution.
This is Member Wilkins, and I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further comments or discussion? Kirk, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Coleman,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member De La Grange,
Yes.
and Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That carries. 7.4, approval of supplemental reading Canyon's Edge. I think that's the book that we discussed previously, if I remember correctly, is it not?
I believe that was passing.
Yes. No, we've discussed this one before, I thought, haven't we?
Yes, I gave a book
Yes.
report last meeting and I moved that we accept The Canyon's Edge by Dusty Bowling.
Member Coolman, second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? All right, Kirk, can we have a roll call vote?
Sure. Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Coleman,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member De La Grange.
Yes.
I think I heard something there. Audio was
Fuzzy,
fuzzy.
yes.
Thank you, Brian. And then Member Richardson.
Yes.
Okay,
Great. And let's see, 7.5, acceptance of our 2020-2021 audit.
You could entertain 7.5 and 7.6, and Director Ely could give you an explanation.
Let's do it that way. Sherry, do you want to give us a little brief update on our audit and corrective action plan?
Sure. I included a memo in your packet, and so gave you kind of the highlights of how the audit went this year. To me, the biggest thing is that we did get an unmodified opinion, and that's the highest score that you can get on an audit. However, we did have one significant deficiency that I mentioned in the memo. And when they originally spoke to me about it, it was about how we had recorded the debt service for the HVAC and the LED light project. And so, like I said in my memo, I was a little bit surprised at their comments on that because we had been working with their audit team on how we should book those funds because of the way GASB rules change from year to year. It has an impact on how you record different things. And so I wanted to make sure we were recording that correctly. So I was a little bit surprised by that. And so the audit lead who had come out here, she had one of the audit partners call me. And like I mentioned in the memo, their main reason for having that finding was that they said our district is just getting too big and we shouldn't have one person who's been charged with the responsibility of doing the finance and the operations for our district. And so then I shared with them, since I'm retiring, the district is splitting up that position into a director of finance and a director of operations. And they said that's exactly what they wanted to see. They felt like that, you know, with a $140 million budget, that we needed to have one person who was specifically devoted to the financial side of the house, and then someone who's devoted to the operations side of the house. And so that was what that corrective action was for. And so the plan that you saw, or that's also in there in your packet, just states that, and that's all they wanted the corrective action plan to say. Just a couple more highlights of the audit. The food service plan, because of COVID, which COVID affected literally everything this year. But our food service program did run in the red this year. And so the general fund had to shore that fund up by about 150,000, which is the first time I think in 15 years that we've had to help the food service program out. So working on some strategies this year so that we don't have that same issue. But since we have kids in school every day, that definitely will help. That was the main issue that we had last year, being in comprehensive distance learning for a portion of the year, and then hybrid a portion of the year. That really impacted the number of students that were participating in our meal program. So I don't think we'll see the same issue this year. The other thing I did include, it's at the very end, once you go through all of the audit documents, I did include an analysis of our ending fund balances so that you could see where we are at. Last year, we were a little bit over 6% for 1920, and then for 2021, we did bump that up. We were about 8.5% for our ending fund balance. So that's 8.5% of expenditures. And so I thought that was good that we were able to bump up our ending fund balance. And with some careful planning and creativity, hopefully we'll be able to do that as we come around the corner on 21-22 and as we look forward to 22-23. I did make one comment at the bottom of my memo that this is the first year that it has been a requirement that the board actually accept the audit. And that is for the student investment account. ODE is requiring that because the student investment account obviously is part of the audit. And so because it's part of special revenue funds, it's not broken out separately. And so you saw that we had about 1.3 million in expenditures and we brought in 1.3 million in revenues. That's a reimbursable grant through ODE. And so what you spend that year is what they reimburse you on. And so that was the highlight for the student investment account. And I think
So,
those were
Sherry,
the major
quick-
issues. Yes.
Quick question on that. So the student investment account, we were just talking about restricted funds earlier. Are those also restricted funds because we're told how we spend them?
Yes, they're restricted, but it's a broader base that you have that you can spend the student investment account funds on. And so there are certain, I think there are 4 or 5 different areas that we need to target with those funds. And then you have some leeway within those target areas of how you can spend those funds. But yes, Gary, you're right. There are some restrictions on that.
Are they recorded as restricted or in the books like that other one?
Yes, they would be recorded as 3299. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So Todd, you had a hand raised there.
No, if we're ready to motion.
Well, no motion has been made yet, so if you have a question.
Oh, no, but I'm willing to motion to accept the audit as is.
Member Coolman has seconded that motion, and I want to add to that just because we've had one expert getting all our work done for us, it doesn't mean that we're always going to have that luxury, because Sherry is retiring, I understand, at mid-year. And I just want to be one of the first to thank her for her unselfish giving over and over and over to District 7 and all of us.
Thank you, Cliff.
This is Member Wilkins, and I'll back that up with unselfish giving and love for our district. And we definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Cassie.
Doing 2 jobs with one person. I know Kurt cannot clone you fast enough.
They're going to be fine.
They broke the mold.
Well, enjoy your retirement, Sherry.
Thanks, Cassie.
In reference to the school, the food items, you know, obviously more money spent on either food or staff to get that food out, I have no issue being in the red so that kids are fed.
All right, well, I think we had a motion to approve 7.5 and 7.6. Do we have a second?
I believe I seconded that. Cliff,
All right, well, any further discussion then? Superintendent Kolb, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
I will. Member Coleman,
yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes?
Member Neville,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
You guys are in different order. I want to make sure I got all of you. No?
Member DeLagrange, yes.
Member DeLagrange, you dropped at the bottom of my screen. There you go. Member DeLagrange, thank you.
Member
Great, very good.
Nelson,
Yes.
Member Nelson, one comment, the corrective action plan, you and Kirk and I, we all have to sign that. If you could sign that and scan it and email it back to us, and then we can get that turned back around this week, that would be great.
I can swing by the district office tomorrow if you would like.
That would be perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I should be able to swing by later in the afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so 8.0, our future meeting dates. We do have another wonderful workshop. There's 6 in total. We've done 3, so we're halfway there. This next one will be on the downhill slope. It's next Monday from 5 to 8, and that will be on Zoom. And so we'll be able to meet and go over some more training about how to be a good board. Our next board meeting will be on February 8th. And then the next one after that is February 22nd. And then we do have a budget committee meeting on February 23rd. And then I just remind everybody in March, we have a busy schedule as we prepare to do interviews for superintendent candidates. So please keep your schedules open for that.
Is that 14th, 15th, and 17th?
Yes, March 14th, 15th, and 17th.
Thank you.
I will be happy to continue to monitor the COVID numbers. I would like us to be able to meet in person when it's safe. And so I expect hopefully that we should be seeing a downtrend by the 8th and certainly by the 22nd based on the projections. And so I'll continue to meet with Kirk, but our goal is to be able to meet as a board and certainly with the public as soon as possible. So I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? All right, very good. Thank you very much. We will adjourn our meeting tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.